We commit the body of Zuba Dinko to the ground, earth to earth, and give him peace both now and forevermore.
That final rite marked the beginning of anguish for an innocent soul, a soul deeply loved and cherished by Zuba Dinko. A quiet and enigmatic man, little is known about Dinko, as he was affectionately called, except that he was financially secure and had married a much younger woman following the sudden death of his wife, Carol. Before her passing, the couple had never been blessed with children. Then came Amanat. After giving Dinko a child, she was confronted with heartbreaking news. They would never have another, as Dinko had become sterile. It was a devastating revelation. Yet Amanat chose to remain with him, having come from a life marked by poverty and hardship. Despite the sorrow of unfulfilled hopes, she resolved to stay and build a life with the man who had given her and their child a measure of stability and security. A few years later, Dinko passed away. Before his death, however, he entrusted all his assets to Amanat, hoping to ensure that she would have the means to care for their son, Malik. By then, signs had begun to emerge that Malik faced significant cognitive and developmental challenges, making his future an even greater concern for his father. Determined to secure the boy's well-being, Dinko left everything in Amanat's hands, trusting that she would provide the care and protection their son would need in the years ahead. Within months of Dinko's death, Amanat secured a teaching position at a local elementary school, thanks in large part to the connections her late husband had cultivated during his lifetime. Before a year had passed, nearly every member of Amanat's family had moved into the house Dinko had left behind. As the household grew more crowded, Malik increasingly found himself pushed to the margins. No one seemed interested in talking with him or including him in their activities. Isolated and lonely, he clung to the only things he could truly call his own, a guitar and a worn backpack, which gradually became his most treasured possessions and constant companions. Around this same time, a man in his 30s began visiting Amanat. She introduced him as a fellow teacher from the school. Meanwhile, Dinko's brother explored legal avenues to reclaim a portion of the estate, believing that some of it rightfully belonged to Malik in this case scenario. However, he encountered insurmountable legal obstacles and eventually abandoned the effort. He also expressed a desire to take Malik into his own home, but his wife vehemently opposed the idea and threatened divorce if he persisted. Not long afterward, the so-called fellow teacher began spending nights at Amanat's house. What started as occasional visits soon turned into extended stays lasting days at a time, until he eventually moved in altogether. Malik, trusting and vulnerable, had little choice but to accept whatever explanation his mother offered. "Richard is here to help keep the house safe from bad people," she would tell him. Malik believed her. But as Amanat's relationship with Richard deepened and she eventually became pregnant, the atmosphere in the house began to change. What had once been neglect gradually evolved into open hostility. Both Amanat and Richard grew increasingly impatient with Malik's presence, treating him as a burden rather than a son. Before long, their resentment had escalated to the point where they wanted him out of their lives entirely. A few weeks after being thrown out of his home, ironically, part of his inheritance, Malik found himself wandering the streets alone. During this time, he befriended a street boy named Zachariah, one of the few people who showed him any kindness. Not long afterward, Malik was attacked by a group of delinquent youths who sought to recruit him into their criminal activities. When he refused, they beat him severely and left him for dead. With Zachariah's help, Malik managed to drag himself toward nearby Riola Hospital. However, fearing he would be implicated in the incident, Zachariah fled the moment he noticed a vehicle entering the hospital parking lot. The vehicle belonged to Dr. Clara, who was returning to begin her shift. As she parked, she was startled to see a badly injured boy lying only a few feet from her parking space. Without hesitation, she rushed to his side and immediately called for assistance. Within minutes, Malik, still unconscious, was wheeled into the emergency unit. Before the end of her shift, Dr. Clara personally ensured that the boy's condition had been stabilized. Although she did not yet know his name, she treated him with the same compassion she had shown countless patients before him. Her generosity, however, was not universally admired among the hospital staff. Some resented her willingness to assist patients who lacked the means to pay, even though she frequently covered expenses out of her own pocket. Clara, however, saw no reason why financial hardship should deprive anyone of necessary medical care. Among her most vocal critics was Dr. A.Y. Deco, the senior clinical psychologist at Riola Hospital. Several months earlier, he had already spoken with Clara at length about what he considered her reckless habit of bringing non-paying patients into the system. Therefore, when he learned about the unidentified boy recovering in one of the wards, he promptly summoned her to his office. In truth, Dr. Deco held no authority over Dr. Clara. His concern stemmed less from policy and more from genuine, fatherly worry. He could not understand why a promising young physician would repeatedly place her career and reputation at risk for strangers. After listening respectfully to his concerns, Clara cleverly redirected the conversation and requested his professional assistance in evaluating the boy's psychological condition. Though reluctant, Dr. Deco eventually agreed. For the past few weeks, Riola Hospital had been caring for a critically ill patient, suffering from a combination of severe medical conditions, including dementia, leukemia, and a recent bout of pneumonia. His name was Sir Richardson Ibekwe. Although widely recognized as a philanthropist, Sir Richardson's generosity was often viewed with a measure of skepticism because of his son, Patrick, a notorious mobster whose criminal reputation cast a long shadow over the family name. Patrick was away when his father was admitted to the hospital. Upon his return, however, he rushed to Riola Hospital and found Dr. Mark attending to Sir Richardson in his ward. As Patrick attempted to obtain information about his father's condition, Dr. Mark responded with hostility and contempt.
You are nothing but a gangster. Watch your mouth.
Gentlemen, that is enough. Let us step outside and talk.
Escalating what should have been a routine conversation into a heated confrontation. A few days after this incident, Dr. Mark sustained a gunshot wound. Without hesitation, he accused Patrick of orchestrating the attack.
Mark, what happened to your arm?
Patrick did this to me.
We will figure this out.
Despite having no tangible evidence to support such a claim. In truth, Dr. Mark's accusation was particularly reckless. Given Patrick's reputation, falsely implicating him could have serious consequences. Moreover, Dr. Mark had accumulated no shortage of enemies over the years, both known and unknown, largely due to his abrasive temperament and often irrational behavior. As a result, numerous individuals could have wished him harm. Meanwhile, Malik had recovered remarkably and was finally ready to be discharged from the hospital. The problem, however, was where he would go. He could neither return to his father's house nor survive on the streets again, and Dr. Clara was unwilling to hand him over to either the police or child welfare services. Not long afterward, she was summoned to Dr. Deco's office. "The boy, have you decided what to do with him?" he asked. "I'm not sure," Clara replied. "I was actually thinking about that a short while ago." "Good. Although his medical bills are being covered by an unknown individual, which frankly is quite unusual, we still don't know the circumstances surrounding his gunshot wound, and that uncertainty is not good for the hospital's image," Dr. Deco said, adjusting himself in his chair. "And what exactly are you implying? Not long ago, you diagnosed him as autistic. How can someone like that be considered a criminal?" "He may not be a criminal himself, but he could be used by one. One of the defining traits of people like him is loyalty, unquestioning loyalty. In the wrong hands, that can become a liability." He paused before continuing. Alternatively, I could inform your parents about the situation. They might be willing to help. That won't be necessary, sir. I'll figure something out before the end of the week, Dr. Clara said, before leaving the office. Later that evening, Dr. Clara brought Dr. Baptiste, a volunteer optometrist from Quebec, Canada, to Malik's ward to examine the unusual mucus discharge from his eyes. Within minutes, he identified the condition as conjunctivitis. I could prescribe antibiotics, he said, or we can simply allow the infection to run its course. And how long would that take? About 1 to 2 weeks, Dr. Baptiste replied as he continued his examination. Thanks. Afterward, they left the ward together. As they walked down the hallway, Dr. Baptiste noticed that Clara seemed unusually troubled. He gently touched her shoulder, prompting them both to stop. Clara removed her glasses and looked at him. I heard you've been having some concerns regarding Malik, he said. Yeah, she admitted. Honestly, I'm a bit confused right now. Confusion isn't always a bad thing. It means there are still options available. He slipped his hands into his pockets. So, what's the best one you've come up with so far? I live alone in a 3-bedroom house. Two of the rooms are fully furnished, but nobody uses them. That sounds like a good start. The problem is, I don't want my parents finding out about it. Dr. Baptiste smiled. And who exactly is going to tell them if you don't? For the first time that day, Clara smiled. You know, Baptiste, you just made my day. Thank you for watching. Be sure to stay tuned for the next episode. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share your thoughts in the comments. We'd love to hear your opinion.